Hi, everyone. As Daryl mentioned, both Kate and I are faculty affiliates at the Myaamia Center, and it's a pleasure for us to present to you the first phase of some of our research on the Miami tribe students as they're matriculating here at Miami University. For over 20 years now, Miami University and the Myaamia Nation have enjoyed a relationship that includes Miami tribal students attending Miami University. The Myaamia Center initiated this research project to explore how Miami tribal students attending Miami University develop their identity as Miami tribe members. And we're also interested in looking at how they adjust while they're here at the university. This question is not only important to the Myaamia Center and the tribal community, but it's also important to the larger higher education community. Only about 1% of the total U.S. college student population is comprised of Native American students. However, there's a disparity, and this comes in terms of graduation rates. On average, about 40% of Native American students who enter a four-year college program in the year 2000 graduated 6 years later. That's nearly a 20% difference from the general college student population. Various governmental reports indicate that anywhere from about 70 to 90% of Native American college students discontinue their higher education. This attrition from college is not predominantly due to a lack of talent or hard work. Most research suggests that a key influence on the level of student academic success is social support. For this reason, we wanted to examine how Myaamia students are adjusting while attending Miami University and examine the impact of the Myaamia tribe support systems in the lives of these students. For students who come to college with a defined cultural context, it's often viewed as important that the support system offered to them is tied to that cultural context. What this means for Myaamia students is that the more the students can be affirmed by the tribe, informed about tribal knowledge systems, language, and cultural practices, the better. This level of support impacts their academic success. So what happens if a student leaves before graduating? For every college student who left a university in the United States in the year 2002, it was a financial loss in the amount of $3.8 billion in lost income. And in the same year, states spent more than $1.3 billion per year on students who dropped out of their first year of college. But more important, for every tribal student who leaves a university, it is a loss of great potential and contribution to the entire tribal community and to the next generation. Before providing you with results from this particular project, it's important for us to first define what we meant by identity and culture. Every person has an identity and creates that identity out of who they are and their lived experience. Culture is typically defined as a set of traditions and customs, beliefs, history, and language, and experiences that are inherent within and shared by a particular group and transmitted to the next generation. So basically, it's who we are, what we do, and how we interact. One definition of ethnic identity is an intergenerational, evolving sense of self as a member of an ethnic group with a shared cultural heritage. And we defined retention as basically remaining enrolled for consecutive semesters during the college matriculation process. So while the ultimate goal of retention is graduation, the measure of successful college graduation per federal guidelines is in the use of a 6-year benchmark. However, universities typically track 4-year, 5-year, and 6-year graduation rates. So with that said, here's what we did. We interviewed 19 Miami tribe students last spring semester, and 13 of them responded to a survey. The questions used in the interviews were focused on students' sense of Native American identity and their views of the Miami tribal course, which you'll hear about in a minute, and its impact on language and history study. And also we wanted to look at their sense of belonging to the tribal community. So we asked several questions about identity based upon this identity scale that we also used. So what did we find? Well, in terms of identity and university adjustment and tribal connections, our results suggested that students' sense of identity in terms of their being identified with a Native American tribe or nation was strong. 92% of the students agreed or strongly agreed with the identity scale measures, and the items were belonging to American Indian people, being American Indian is important to who I am, and I'm proud to be American Indian. With the highest value, the students reported being placed on the sentiment, I am proud to be an American Indian. This identity affirmation, however, was further echoed in some of the qualitative results that we have. And you're going to see some of these comments on the screen behind me. When students described how they identified themselves to other people, they overwhelmingly stated Native American. However, they also said that they identified as Myaamia and they would engage in further conversation with individuals asking about their identity. And one student framed it this way: since the Myaamia class, I've said Myaamia Indian, but before that, I just said Native American. But this wasn't always true for all of the tribal students. As first-year students, some of them reported coming to the university without a real firm sense of what it meant to be Myaamia. This current group of first-year students literally said that they came in saying, I'm not sure how I would identify myself, but then later that was transformed by the experience they had in the class. This uncertainty was absent from virtually all of the juniors and seniors that we interviewed. The upper class students distinguished Native American from Myaamia as well. In terms of the students' development in relationship and connection with the Miami tribe, they mentioned that those connections grew stronger as they matriculated through Miami University and connected with the Myaamia Center and the classes. The sense of connection is represented in the comments we see here. They said that it's really important for us to know about the tribal relationship and to understand how we can give back to the nation. Another student stated, most of us feel like we have a personal connection with the tribe and what we can do to contribute. So why are the Myaamia students' identity and their tribal connections important for us to document? Because it matters and it has an impact on their lives, on the nation, and the future. It certainly matters to the tribe, but it also matters to those of us who study the experiences of students in higher education. At the end of last academic year, a total of about 84 Myaamia students had entered Miami University. 48 of them graduated, and we still have about anywhere from 20 to 24 that are still matriculating. When we look at recent graduation rates of the Miami tribe students, before the Myaamia Center came into existence, the graduation rate was about 44%. Now that the Myaamia Center experience has been in existence, we're hovering around 58% graduation rate. When we compare that to a national benchmark, you see here on the screen, the 4-year graduation rate for recent Myaamia tribe classes is at 58%. The 5-year rate is 66%, and the 6-year graduation rate is at 68%. This is in comparison, according to Department of Education results, to a 4-year graduation rate of all Native American college students at public universities of 17.9%, and a 5-year graduation rate of 32.5%. So these graduation rates don't just magically happen. They're intentionally sought and crafted, and Kate is going to share with you the context that we've built here through the Myaamia Center to create the results that you see.
Hiya. Dr. Mosley Howard has explained the impact of Myaamia education at Miami University, and now I'm going to explain a bit about how it happens. What do we do here in the Myaamia Center to educate our tribal students about Myaamia culture and to further links of responsibility and identity between the Myaamia students and the tribe? It all starts with the Myaamia Center, developed as a tribal university partnership in 2001, and thriving under the leadership of Darrell Baldwin with supports from George Ironstrack and Andrew Strack and a large number of university and tribal members. And I want to have a special shout out to Bobby Burke, who's somewhere out here, who's one of the students' main advisors and supporters for the center. When Miami University made the commitment of the Heritage Scholarships for Myaamia tribal students, Myaamia staff and educators understood that scholarship recipients must not only earn a college degree at Miami University, but also gain an enhanced understanding of and identification with Myaamia culture and a sense of responsibility with the tribe. Young people are the future of the tribe, and the Myaamia Center staff understood that their role as educators was to build up cultural awareness and commitment to being Myaamia. The tribe and the center were already moving in this direction in the early 2000s with the culture and language revitalization work and with the development of the A1 Zapata summer youth educational experience. In A1 Zapata, Myaamia youth aged 10 to 16 from around the country spend one week on Myaamia tribal lands in a program focused on Myaamia language acquisition, cultural education, and connecting Myaamia youth to each other. Miami University tribal students were invited to be counselors of A1 Zapata, thereby setting up a circle of mentoring and friendship that bonds young people across the ages. Paralleling the A1 Zapata program for cultural and language education for tribal youth was the development of a tribal education program here at Miami University. In the early 2000s, Miami University staff developed a series of permanent seminars for all tribal students who were on the Heritage Award. What we commonly call the Miami Heritage classes are a series of 1 credit hour classes. The 3 topics, each studied over the course of 1 academic year, serve as the focus for the classes: ecological perspectives and history, language and culture, and issues of the modern American Indian. And then during the senior year, students take 2 credits of a senior independent study. The Myaamia curriculum is intentionally designed to be circular, not chronological, so that all Myaamia students take the same course together every year. First-year tribal students start off with whatever course is being offered that year, attending class with other tribal students in their 2nd and 3rd year at the university. With this loop design, the course emphasizes the community of tribal student learners as much as the chronological building upon content knowledge. The sequence allows for all of the 24 or so tribal students to attend class together, building mutual mentoring networks. Here's a snapshot. I'm going to give you a snapshot of the 3 courses, and we have on the screen behind us quotes from some of the students from the interviews that Susan and I did, talking about their experiences with the classes. The class Myaamia Tribe Contemporary Issues introduces and explores major issues that the tribe faces today as a sovereign nation. The issues are contextualized within Indian country as a whole, as well as to broader indigenous experiences. Topics include global issues of sovereignty and self-determination in governmental structure and in activities that are not normally associated with issues of political or economic sovereignty, such as art, culture, and food products. The goal of the class is the development of a framework of comparative indigenous nationhood. And there behind me are the quotes by a number of students about that particular class. In the class Myaamia Ecological Perspectives and History, students gain an understanding of how historical and ecological perspectives are and can be part of contemporary Myaamia lives. This class has a particularly powerful effect on students because they learn to pay attention to the same natural cycles of the moon, vegetation, and weather that their ancestors knew, and they also learn important tribal and family history. And in the class Myaamia Language and Culture leads to the development of functional speaking skills and an understanding of the pivotal role of language in family and culture. Darrell tells the students, "Language is what your ancestors left you." And he encourages students to take their newly learned language back to their families and teach them through the digital and paper language materials developed by the Myaamia Center. Students' final exam for the first semester of the class is to deliver a short presentation to their classmates in Myaamia introducing themselves, identifying their relatives, and explaining their academic major and other interests. The concept that language is central to cultural identity is an important emphasis in this class and in the program as a whole, as you can see from the students' comments behind me. In their fourth and final year, students engage in an independent study project in which they develop a project that is intentionally designed to give back to the tribal community, as identified by students. Examples of senior student projects include a study of psychological treatment and American Indian identity formation. I believe that was Haley's project. Classroom lesson plans of tribal culture and geological study, a comparison of indigenous groups in Australia and New Zealand with the Myaamia, and the creation of an animated version of a story from the Myaamia story collection. Miami Heritage classes often move outside of the physical classroom building to explore natural aspects of Myaamiaki, Miami native land, and to engage in games of lacrosse and dinners with Myaamia meals, dinners of Myaamia meals at Daryl and George's homes. Students have also organized a Native American Students Association, and they organize for social and cultural events, including trips to Oklahoma. As George told us earlier this morning, one of the goals here is to create a community of change makers. Across classes, you'll like this slide. Across classes, instructors emphasize the family relations between students throughout the class, opening each class with Aya, Ewemele ka koke, greetings, my relatives. Instructors and students' families are invited to and often attend class. Early in the fall semester, the instructor shows this photograph of a dozen Myaamia from the 19th century, and then notes the genealogical links between ancestors and the current class. The integration of family and tribal culture into course content has a really powerful impact on students. Because of the structure in which all Myaamia students circle through the learning together, the class serves as a kind of community center and reinforces the family connections between them. And for some students, it builds up upon earlier informal education learned from family members who told family stories and tribal history. A number of principles guide the academic programming of the Myaamia coursework: the link between cultural revitalization and language revitalization, Myaamia family links, and the importance of learning about and giving back to the Myaamia community. The coursework offers not only new content knowledge about Myaamia people to tribal students, but also a new way of thinking as Indigenous people. By engaging in a collective learning experience, tribal students learn about their own relationships and identity as Myaamia, as well as Indigenous ways of knowing, family, culture, language, nature, and learning. I'm learning what it means to be Myaamia. Myaamia Center staff teach that part of being Myaamia means giving back to the community. Knowing is responsibility, and giving back to the community is one important way that students can demonstrate their responsibility to the larger group. And here is a picture of this year's Myaamia group. Nepwandingi, we learn from each other. The Miami Heritage classes lead to proficiency in Myaamia language, but also a new sense of identity and an understanding of Myaamia history and culture and Myaamia ways of knowing. Language proficiency plays a critical part in this education, and it both reinforces and encourages other educational experiences. Chief Leonard, when he first came to Miami University when the Heritage Scholarships began, Chief Leonard used to tell tribal students at Miami University that you are Myaamia. In this, he and staff of the subsequent Myaamia Center have emphasized the balance of individual identity with community identity, and the sense of responsibility to the tribe and the vitality of the tribe, the past and the future. And as we heard this morning in Haley's beautiful song, Her last verse I found particularly appropriate. She says, "Our language, flowing like the river with our thoughts and dreams, we are still here." Anyway,